All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this Works Committee meeting to order. Can we first start with a roll call? Oh. Can you prove that you're here? That's the question. So we have a full complement of councilors here. Okay. All right. Are there any disclosures of interest? Seeing and hearing none. We are at 3.1, which is the Works Committee meeting minutes from October 4th. Okay, moved by Vice Chair, seconded by Stevie Matta. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And then we're into 5.1, which is Dan. It's Watcher. Wechter. No, and Ramesh told me I just messed it up. So thanks, Dan. All right, go ahead, Dan. Thank you very much. And you just have to push the speak button there. Oh, you're on. You're good.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Works Committee, for this opportunity to give a presentation on our Region Road 18 pilot road reconstruction project using recycled materials. The project was created out of Council's desire to invest in a circular economy and instructed Works Department to explore options for incorporating recycled materials in our construction and to investigate the viability of creating a resource from these materials that are collected through our own recycling program. Glass, plastic, paper waste is collected and sorted at our material recovery facility. Glass is shown here separated and stockpiled. It contains pieces of plastic labels and lids, metal lids, pieces of porcelain, and ceramic. Plastics are also sorted and baled, as you can see here, and these are the diversion materials that we look closely at. After analysis of our regional inventory, we selected Region Road 18 for our pilot, specifically a rural 4-kilometer segment between Kendall and Concession Road 5. It had low annual average daily traffic and a desperate need of rehabilitation. We split it into 2 phases, each 2 kilometers in length. Phase 1 utilized conventional rehab and recycling techniques. Phase 2 utilized similar techniques while incorporating recycled glass and plastics. So we thought it'd be ideal to have both phases adjacent to each other in the same right-of-way, so it'll give us a great opportunity to compare the performance between construction using glass and without, because they're both exposed to the same traffic and weather conditions. Here's existing road profile prior to construction. It had a pavement condition index of 4, so you can't get much lower than that. You can see several significant modes of failure evident. It's got transverse and longitudinal cracking, alligator cracking, and rutting. You can even see previous repairs that are failing, and oil stains are also evident. So during design, we partnered with the region's only glass processor, Nexcycle. They receive recycled glass from Durham Region and other municipalities, process the glass and sort it down to 2.5% non-glass material. And for us, they ground it to a 6mm size that was more optimal for our needs. We took a sample of this material, tested it at our materials testing lab, mixed it with typical granular A and B, and it still met the requirements of OPS 1010 and provided a competent aggregate. We also partnered with Revita Polymers, and they provided mixed plastics for this project. Laboratory testing through 2021 by Professor Simon Hesp of Queen's University determined that the optimum plastic concentration in asphalt is 0.3% by weight. Also determined that the viable plastics we could incorporate are high and low density polyethylene, polypropylene, and polystyrene. And we're very pleased to have Professor Hesp here in person with us today, and we benefited greatly from his great experience in the field, and he guided us through the design and construction phases. Close-up of the mixed plastic pellets showed a very clean material, pea-sized, smooth pellets that can easily be added through the asphalt batching process. They melt into the hot mix, and also Professor Hesby incorporated data into our design from several major asphalt trials that he carried out throughout Ontario. It should be noted that similar pavement trials have been undertaken throughout the U.S. and the rest of the world. Another key component were PET fibers. That's polyethylene terephthalate. It's constructed from recycled plastic bottles. They have a high melting point, so they stay solid in the hot asphalt, provide fiber reinforcement against tensile strain, and that gives us the protection against cracking. And lab testing here revealed that the optimum concentration is also 0.3% by weight. Now, this is approximately 30 times greater than what's typically used in the industry with virgin fibers. So the region and city of Oshawa, there may be others locally that have used Kevlar virgin fibers on recent road projects, and that's typically around 0.01%. So here we used about 30 times more. Here's our typical design cross-section. We placed recycled glass only on the east half of the road so that we can compare it to the performance of the west half without glass. We also divided the road segment into 5 test sections. So this allowed us to vary the combination of mixed plastic and PET fibers in each section. Again, compare the performance and find out which combinations work best. You can see our trial utilized extensive experimentation and intelligent design into the mixed ratios. With design and tender complete, the project advanced to construction. And here we're acknowledging federal funding, required project completion by the end of '24, which we certainly achieved. Onto the construction phase. You see us placing the recycled glass here. We pulverized the platform in 200-meter sections, west side first and the east, and this allowed us to maintain traffic at all times. The glass was placed with live bottom trailers, and the glass laid down exactly where it was dumped due to the angularity of the glass. The windrow of the pulverized southbound lane kept the recycled glass in excellent position with no glass leaving the road surface. The glass was then immediately graded after placement to a 25-millimeter lift. And again, you can see no glass leaving the road surface. Multiple passes with the pulverizer was utilized to grind and blend the existing asphalt, underlying granular, and recycled glass material. And pulverizing to the edge of the existing platform, you can see produced a nice clean edge line. So close-up reveals how well these materials blended together. It resembled a well-graded granular A and B mix, which was ideal for our road base. After the first pass, you can see the glass particles very well dispersed and barely visible at a distance. Here's the glass placement process train, the pulverizer at the front, followed by the smooth drum roller and the grater. And blended material compacted very well, and it was able to support traffic immediately. There was no rolling or deformation observed. Here's the entire pulverized road platform. The east half has recycled glass, and the west half is without, and both look very similar. And you can see there's really no hazard with the glass even at this stage before additional granular and asphalt. This platform provided excellent strength, was able to support traffic without any additional granular material, and we were very pleased with this result. Here's the full pulverized platform, and just should be noted that the 6-week delay we used for the environmental investigation exposed the platform to continuous traffic, which provided additional compaction and consolidation and actually helped strengthen our road base. Here's the environmental investigation in full swing. Test pits were advanced every 50 meters. They're taken near the shoulder, in the middle of the lane, and near road centerline. Here's a typical test pit, and exposed a homogeneous road-based mixture of granular and glass materials. If you look closely enough, you can see a few small pieces of colored porcelain, ceramic, and plastic. Total of 40 test pits were advanced. They were sampled, tested and analyzed. And once we received positive test results, then we moved on to paving. And here's a look at Krupi's Oshawa asphalt drum plant. And Krupi was our asphalt subcontractor. So we used their plant, feed aggregates, asphalt cement, mixed plastics, PET fibers into the batch plant for production of the different mixes needed for our project. Plastics and fibers were measured into 6-kilogram bags to facilitate precise addition into the asphalt batches. So to achieve a 0.3% concentration, 1 bag was required for every 2 tons of asphalt. So here are the bags of material. On the right side is the fiber, and the bag's larger because the fiber is less dense. I brought a couple bags in here with anyone's interest to look at after the presentation. So this material had to be manually added at the top of the plant. Some experimentation was required on trial batches. We had to increase the dry mixing time with the aggregates and manually open the bags to ensure thorough mixing. Here's our paving operation. See the spreader in front, followed by the material transfer vehicle and the trailer supplying the asphalt. They're paving mixed plastic here, and the mat looks very good. Here they're paving the fiber mix while doing a great job of maintaining traffic. So it should be noted through the entire project, traffic was maintained at all times and never required any road closures. Here you can visibly see the high concentration of the PET fiber and the shovelful, the strands hanging down, that's the fiber, that's what provides the tensile strength and crack resistance in the long term. We took core samples as we would with any road project, and those are used to test asphalt properties such as compaction, thickness, and Marshall properties. Combinations of the rollers were used to compact the plastic modified mixes. These mixes we found compact more quickly and had to be rolled at cooler temperatures. Little experimentation was required to optimize the timing and combination of the rollers so we didn't overcompact or undercompact the mat. Here's our fully paved platform with modified ditches, new guide rail, and line painting. I think we can all agree it's an incredible improvement over what was existing, and it's a very impressive platform. I hope everyone's got a chance to get out and drive that road segment. Here's a nice shot of the finished product. We're very pleased how the road turned out. It was completed on time and under budget, and we expect this road segment's life cycle to significantly exceed the standard 20 years, and our ultimate goal is to get closer to a 40-year life cycle. Many benefits of our innovation, and here's a chart that demonstrates how road life cycles have deteriorated along with the quality of asphalt over the last 4 decades. You can see in the 80s, it's hovering around 30 years and down to low in some segments of 11 in 2014. However, with our enhanced specifications, testing protocols, inclusion of plastics and fiber, we've seen significant improvement in our life cycles these past 10 years. You can see it creeping back up over 24 currently. So what we're doing is paying off, and it's translating into huge cost savings and environmental benefits. And finally, we were pleased to receive the Project of the Year award from the Ontario Public Works Association. And it's always nice to receive some positive acknowledgement from your peers and what you're trying to achieve. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to field any questions that you may have.
Hey, thank you very much, Dan. A really exciting project, and we appreciate the efforts that you're making to make our environment even more sustainable. So we're going to start with the Vice Chair. Oh, and we're going to alter the agenda by Councillor Crawford.
Yes. Can we alter the agenda to move the report up?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so moved by Marilyn, seconded by Tito. All in favor? That's carried. And then the first person to speak is the Vice Chair. Go ahead, Tito.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Dan, I just wanted to ask some questions because it is exciting to see us recuperating some of the waste materials and actually transforming them into something useful. And I think that there's 2 different sort of layers to that, truly. You've got the base layer and then you've got the top coat. So just, I understand the base layer, and it looks like it functioned pretty well, but the only question would be, when considering the environment, what level, do we then have to, if we have to reconstruct the road, what happens to that material? Is it considered to be environmentally friendly after that, or do we have to go through another process? That's the only question that I think comes to my mind with the base coat, with the base layer. Then the top coat, the question is drivability. Anyone that watches a lot of racing would understand, the different types of asphalt or surfaces, and what, the adhesion to the road is in comparisons to normal asphalt versus asphalt which is bound by plastics. Could you just explain the two and the impacts of the two?
Sure, and through the chair, I think those are great questions, great observations. I'm glad everyone's taking such a great interest in it. Just to start with the granular base, this is not really that new, although the method that we used was new here. Recycled glass has been used in road construction for a long time. I think in the mid-'80s to mid-'90s, the region used it quite a bit. Typically, it was in road reconstruction, so the recycled glass was taken from our recycling facility, taken to the aggregate pits. It was mixed with the granular B, and then trucked to the site. So it was underlined here. We wanted to incorporate it into a rehabilitation project, so we're not excavating the road. We're just making use of the material that's already in the road. Road materials, we consider them an asset. They're a resource, so we just want to keep using them in a long-term basis. So we were able to spread the material on the road and pulverize it, so it basically ground it up, and that became the road base's new granular B. And then we put a lift of fresh granular A on top, 100 millimeters. So it's basically encapsulated in that area. The recycled glass is essentially inert. It's not an environmental concern. It's not pristine material. Through the recycling and the process sorting the material, you can't remove all the non-glass particles out, but most of it. So this material is reduced down to 2.5% non-glass. Our goal is to process the glass ourselves. That's what we're proposing in future projects, and we think that our recycling streams are cleaner, and we can produce a cleaner product. So the MECP is going to partner with us. We're going to invite them out to our recycling facility, have a look at our product we produce. We're going to test it in a materials testing lab. So we think we can do a better job. So we're not concerned with any environmental impacts. During this project, we sampled the material directly and performed a T-clip analysis on it, and our waste staff could give you a better overview of that than I can, but it's basically a toxicity characteristic leaching procedure. So they add solvents to the material to try and force to leach anything off it, and they were unable to detect anything with their lab equipment. So we're not concerned. The material blended extremely well, and then it was all encapsulated with asphalt on the top, and the shoulders were also sealed. So I feel that there's really no concern. Your comments with the asphalt are also very insightful. The mixed plastics, they melt in the plastic, in the asphalt mix. And typically, we just use it in the base lift, so it becomes an integral part of the asphalt. I think the good professor here could give you a thesis on that. Asphalts have been modified with plastic for a long time now. That's how we can achieve these higher design grades. And then the fiber itself, it mixes thoroughly, and it just reinforces the asphalt. It's been used extensively, virgin fibers, throughout the industry for a couple decades now. It's used in concrete as well. Here we're using fibers created from recycled material. So again, investing in that circular economy, the assets that we already own. So rideability, there really isn't any change. The only change is long-term, there's resistance to cracking. So you've got a better road surface for a much longer time.
I appreciate that. Really, thank you for the presentation and the response to those questions, because I think generally those are the two layers, pun intended, that I think people consider to be in question when you're dealing with be it the aggregate or the asphalt, and the lifespan, as well as the the environmental impact. So thank you, Dan, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah. Very
Thank you very
welcome.
much for the question. Next, we've got Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. You were very good in the explanation of how it works.
Okay.
But what was missing, and I don't know if that's something you do, is what it costs. Do we have a cost comparison between this process and our original process? Both in placing it, construction, and in life expectancy of the road project?
Through the chair, and again, an excellent question. There is a cost to using the material. Of course, we own our own recycled material, so we're turning it into a resource. The contractor will charge a premium to utilize the material. We've used, as I said, virgin fiber materials in the past. There's a premium for that. So the cost is typically in the order of $15 to $20 per ton addition. Now, we always felt that the extra crack resistance and life cycle we gained was well worth the extra $15 to $20 per ton. Surface asphalt could be anywhere from $110 to $150 per ton. So it's well worth it. For these recycled fibers, there's only one manufacturer. We had to actually truck them from South Carolina. So it was a bit of a cost for that. I think the cost per ton was in the order of around $20, and it cost a little bit for there's a bit of a charge for the contractor to mix it in their batch plant. So not much more than the virgin fibers we pay for. We got 30 times the amount of fibers in this project than we do typically in others. With the virgin fibers, there's a carrier material that's mixed with it, and it's blown in by the supplier. But it's usually a far smaller volume. If you used 30 times that, the price would be no longer be competitive. It wouldn't be worthwhile. So that's why we feel there's a benefit to using our recycled material.
No, and I agree with that. I'm thinking of how we sell it to the residents. This extra investment saves at two ends. First of all, we don't have to dump our plastics and find some place to put that, so there's a cost savings there. But what jumps out at me is 11 years to 24 and possibly more. So you're literally saving the cost of the entire replacement of the road every cycle. And I think we need to be able to document that financially, so we can explain to the taxpayers in Durham how these innovations are in fact long-term saving us money and helping the environment. The second question that it just jumped up when I saw the plastic beads. Is that something we manufacture in our process, or is that something we have to do separately?
Yeah, currently we don't. So that's why we had to partner with one of the region's processors who do that. We during the design process, we spoke with some local processors of recycled material to see if they could grind it up for us. We couldn't get that fully aligned in time for this project. We're going to continue to work with them and see if we can't do that, perhaps maybe look into buying a grinder ourselves, add that to a process with the glass. We're going to add some labor and sort it ourselves, store it at our older MRF facility, and use a steel drum roller to crush it. So we feel we can do that pretty efficiently, and then there's really no cost. The only cost will be for the contractor to pick it up, incorporate it on site, and it'll be far less than the cost of the aggregates we're using. So it's all around benefit.
I saw the opportunity both with the glass and especially with the plastic pellets. Many municipalities are still using wood chips and sand in our playgrounds and things like this. And they used to use pea gravel, but that became too expensive. But if we're generating these round plastic nodules, maybe there's a market there in local municipalities when they're putting their bases into their children's playgrounds. It's safe, it's environmentally safe, it's not going to cut your feet like sometimes the wood chips do. I'm just suggesting that staff look into that. I think there's an opportunity there to dispose more of our plastics in other ways. Even beach remediation. Right now we're throwing sand in, it just washes away. A heavier particle mixed in might allow us to retain our beaches a little bit longer. So I think there's an opportunity to investigate other options for those pellets as well. So I just wanted to raise that.
Great. Thank you.
Again, really good discussion. Thanks, Brian. Okay, next we've got Chair Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Dan, great project. I drive this road at least once a month. So I was on it just the other day, and I encourage my colleagues here, if you ever get out that way, when you get to downtown Newtonville, just go north, and it'll take you all the way up to Taunton Road. So a couple quick questions, though. I'm interested and fascinated by the concept of using our glass as a product. Do we collect more glass than we would normally use for road reconstruction?
Yeah, through the chair, that's a great question, and we appreciated even seeing you on site during construction, taking such an interest. The current production, and I'm looking to our waste staff here, I believe that we could incorporate all of it into our typical annual road reconstruction rehab program if we wished.
So literally, we could use 100% of the glass that we collect, and we can also control the quality of the glass. I'm sure the crushing plant has some kind of washing feature too, so if that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, I believe we can. The facility produces about 400 tons per month. And I think for the two projects we've proposed, I think it's about 5 or 6 months worth of glass, Peter. And it's a small part of our road rehab program and a road reconstruction program, so you could easily use all of it. We don't have any washing facilities. We're looking at ways of processing it and getting that non-glass material percentage down, lower, a cleaner product. But yeah, we'll be able to inform more as we go.
So Dan, this project received made national news in Canada. I'm not sure if it made it outside of Canada. How many other communities are now coming to Durham to look at what we've done to see if they can do it within their communities?
Well, we have had calls from other local municipalities, some of our liaison meetings with MTO and other regional municipalities. There's interest there and questions. Ajax has expressed interest. I don't know if a lot have actually planned incorporating into their programs. There's a few here and there, but I haven't heard of much this coming year.
So if we're going to potentially do and remediate glass that we have in storage, what about plastic fiber? Is it possible for us to use some of the plastics that we collect and do the same thing, create our own product to use in our own roadworks?
And through the chair, certainly. That's our long-term plan.
And then the last part, and this goes to Councillor Nicholson, I see this as a profit item, that the ability to utilize our surplus and sell it to communities so they don't have to go to South or North Carolina to get this product. So as we're going forward, I would be curious to see if we have the ability, one, to utilize all of our products, both plastic and glass. Is it possible to turn this into a profit center? If it's possible to, if we're going down that path, do we need to do, there's a report tomorrow coming to council through our Durham OneNet, which is a municipal service corporation. Is this something that we should create and go a little bit farther and create something along those lines to turn it into a profit center? I see value in this, and I'm just curious. So I don't want to put you on the spot to say that we're going to turn our waste into money. I'd like to use all of our waste in our own projects. It's a great thing. But on the site, it's amazing. And if you drive that road today, there's not a mark, a dent, nothing. It is, if you were riding a motorcycle, as per Councilor Marion Petrie, it's a great place to go for a ride. So thank you for all the great work.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, just a comment, and I agree, the potential is there. We're progressing gradually here. Our first step was to prove and show that we could incorporate the glass in a meaningful way, glass and plastic, which we have done. So we're going on to the next stage and try to process some of it ourselves. The potential is definitely there. There's no question. And Councillor Nicholson's comment on the performance, we've got some great examples. Back around in 2013 and 14, we had a couple cold winters. A lot of municipalities had a problem with failing road segments that really focused everyone's eyes on the quality of asphalt in the industry, which had been deteriorating over time. The region of York had many road segments that failed, and they failed dramatically. So it was a real problem. For us, we had a couple, and one was on Winchester and Ritson, if you're out that way. So we had a problem, and then it was newly placed asphalt that failed quickly. So with the help of Simon Hess, we got down to the source of the problem quickly. That asphalt was removed and replaced with the asphalt that meets our current specifications, higher quality, more flexibility with the strength. If you drive that road segment now, it was replaced in 2014-15. It's not a crack out there. So almost 10 years now. At that time, asphalt's placed, even the suppliers would tell you, you got to expect cracks within a few years, get on there with crack sealing, and then your road segment looks terrible. And there's no reason for that. So we believe that you could have these really long-lasting roads that look good and perform well.
Again, thank you very much for that explanation. Next, we've got Councillor Schumer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just confirming you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Dan, thank you very much for this presentation. It is extremely enlightening to see this information. And I would concur with Councillor Nicholson about perhaps getting some more documented cost benefit review of this, if not for ourselves, for the taxpayers, because I think they would be very interested in not only the environmental benefit we've got going here, but the cost benefit as well. Just following up on Chair Henry's question, he asked about the, how much of our glass recycling product could eventually be used, and he pretty much said, well, we could use all of it if once we get this adopted into our full road rehab and construction process. What about plastics? How much of a dent could we put in the plastics that we receive to put it into this project?
Yeah, through the chair, it's a little difficult for me to answer that question. It's a great question. We've asked that of ourselves. We'd have to, but again, we feel it's more beneficial for us to use our own material right from our own site. So that means we've got to process it ourselves. So until we solve that problem and get a method and see what kind of production we can get, how much we can produce that's of a suitable quality, if we can produce our own fibers would be fantastic. Until we do a little bit more research, it'll be tough for me to answer. I think we can certainly make a good dent. Whether we can use all of it may not be possible, but certainly with more research, we could give you more information on that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Now, so, and you did indicate, percentages of some of the product used. As a whole, the affected road bed, between the glass, the fibers and plastic, how much percentage-wise of these materials is in the road bed once the whole thing is finished?
Yeah, and through the chair, through the road base, so we pulverized a 300 millimeter layer, and we put down 25 millimeters of glass, and it's a little less dense than the granite, so that's about 6-7%. And there's some granite material added on top. Within the asphalt, we're looking at 0.03% by weight. So it's a relatively small fraction, but it does make significant improvement.
Okay. And at what point during the process, because obviously, you're going to be continuing to review this and do analysis, but at what point do you think it would be at the level where this could be fully adopted region-wide?
With the glass, I think we it's not that far away. With the plastic, until we find a partner that can process it for us, or we look into developing that capability ourselves, it's a little further out. So until we do that, it's difficult for me to give you an exact timeline.
Okay, and I think I know the answer to this question too, but I'll ask it. Are there any roads, type of road, volume-wise, whatever, that you don't think this would work, or is this at least so far valid in any road construction that the region could possibly do?
So far, just in these early stages, we've focused on roads that were in desperate need of rehabilitation and those that had relatively low annual average daily traffic, just in case we did have a problem, that it wouldn't be as significant, easier for us to address. Now, for using the glass, we're quite confident in it. So one of the road segments that we've proposed has a much higher AADT. So I think as we progress and get more experience with it, we'd be more comfortable and probably comfortable using it almost anywhere.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, now we're going to go with Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for the presentation. If I understand correctly, the glass and the glass, is that grounded into pellets before it goes into the...
It's ground to about a 6 millimeter size. I had a slide there that showed a handful of the material.
Yeah.
So it's larger than the pellets here that you'll see here for the plastic. So 6 millimeter size, maybe a little larger than the end of the eraser on the end of your pencil, if anyone still uses pencils, but that's about the approximate size.
And the plastic is also grounded into and become pellets as well, correct?
Yeah, I believe the processors, they heat it and they form it into these pellets.
And then that goes into the asphalt.
Yeah, right in the top of the asphalt plant, the drum plant. That's where we used it.
So why I asked through the chair, that question is, there was quite a bit of controversy last summer, I believe, of substances found on the road surface, such as needles and batteries. So if that's the case, can you explain how that happened?
Sure, through the chair. As I discussed, the glass material isn't pristine. It goes through recycling streams. We feel our stream in Durham is probably cleaner than most other municipalities. Next cycle, they receive recycled glass from many different municipalities. So inevitably, through their screening process, there are particles of, obviously the lids and the plastic labels and things like that. Also, other small pieces of plastic, could be some organic material that we found. So unless you've seen it before, you see it for the first time, you may be surprised by that. And there's a little bit of an odor to it because of some organic residue. And that disappeared as soon as it was pulverized. So I think that's what raised some concern. Those other items, we didn't really see those on site. Now, prior to starting the project, in the ditches out there, we had to remove old tires, automotive parts, and electronic equipment. There are all kinds of things that you find in ditches of roads that I guess people just dispose of, unfortunately. But yeah, those, if there's any of those, it'd be extremely rare. We didn't really see those on site.
So, yeah, okay. So we got pictures of those, photographs of those from the residents that they claim they saw that.
Okay.
And it wasn't an isolated incident or not. They saw a lot of that on the surface, on site. So are you saying that that wasn't an accurate depiction of?
No, I would never say that. We didn't see it on site. Not to say that some of it didn't get through the sorting process from next cycle. We've looked at our own stream, at our MRF, and it's much cleaner, and we don't see any materials like that in our glass. So we prefer to use our own material, and we feel it's much cleaner. We'll sort it ourselves, we'll test it ourselves, and be really confident before we use it.
Okay. And through the chair, one other point, it's rural, it's farm country. There are a lot of streams by and etc. So if you're saying, if I understand you correctly, there are other substances that's all mixed up, is there an environmental concern that may get into the water the water tables, etc.?
Yes, and once again, we have no concern. Environmental testing that we did, the T-clip testing demonstrated that using the solvents to try and force something to leach off it, really wasn't anything that they could measure. So we don't really have any concern. The glass and ceramics and other items are relatively inert and almost fully encapsulated in the road, so we're not concerned.
Okay. And so I know you're not concerned. Is there any reason for concern by the residents or the community in general?
And again, I don't feel that there is, no.
Okay. One final question, Chair. It being rural farm country, is this surface more durable than what was there previously? Like a lot of the wear and tear to the road surface that you showed was because of heavy farm equipment. Does this surface withstand that?
Yeah, I would say most definitely. And that's the whole point of the different strategies we incorporate in our road rehabilitation. There's two different sites that we are looking at in the report using hot asphalt recycling. That's just replacing the riding surface, and others with the glass we proposed full pulverizing and repaving. So the pulverization process, we are basically blending the materials that were there. That road segment that we worked on had a combination of surface treatment and asphalt. So it wasn't all asphalt. So it was the standard of road construction varied. And now with the pulverization, additional granular, we really beefed up the road base and added 2 solid lifts of asphalt that's reinforced with some plastic and asphalt. So we feel that it'll service the community much better and have a much longer life.
Thank you.
Okay, next we've got Chair Henry.
Sorry, just a follow-up question. So this one might be a little more complicated. With the province leaning towards producer responsibility and collection of the blue bins, how will that affect us?
Do you want to take that one, Ramesh?
Sure. Through the chair, like I've had conversations with Andrew Evans, our Director of Waste Management, and when I heard this conversation about like that's where you could probably monetize it, regardless of who's going to do it, they're going to have a problem with it. Like whether we collect it or whether it's the private operator starting July 2024, there are still partnership opportunities to either monetize it or be a partner in the circular economy collaboration regardless. And Andrew, if you want to add anything.
Certainly. So no, I think Ramesh is right on point. There's also small segments such as the BIAs that aren't going to be serviced under the new extended producer responsibility. So there are even potential other streams. In our case as well, we have leased our existing MRF. And we have it'll be the same contractor who's operating it for us now, and so we'll have those existing relationships. And I know they're very interested in this material as well because it is a problem material for them that they have to dispose of or move to market somehow.
And just along the same realm, before we go to Councillor Nicholson, if we weren't using glass for road construction or projects like that, where does it end up?
Certainly, glass can be remelted down into bottles. Certain colors of glass are more difficult to deal with than others. There's other recycling opportunities. We have seen even it ground down further to try and be an artificial sand type material. And I may just look back to Peter. Is there anything else?
I'm just saying. No, you're good. Oh, no, you're not.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there are varied markets. So the glass does get sorted by color. Some of it goes into other containers. Some of it goes into artificial sand. A lot of it goes into insulation products, so your fiberglass insulation.
Okay. Thank you. All right, now on to Councillor Nicholson.
Mr. Chair, almost on the same question as yourself. If we're using the glass and the plastic pellets in the asphalt, is there a potential for using the similar product in actually replacing gravel in the base. 'Cause right now, we're mining it out of the side of our hills, and there's a cost there. If we've got other filler we can put into the base of the roads from our own waste stream, wouldn't that be something we should be seriously investigating rather than just looking at the top asphalt layer?
And through the chair, yeah, absolutely. In this project, we incorporated the glass in the granular base, and in past practice, we placed it in the granular B in road construction, a couple layers down below the asphalt. So this is all part of our forward-looking idea is to use the glass in the granular bases when we do full road reconstruction. It's just initially for our pilot project, if you do full road reconstruction, we usually replace the undergrounds, the sewers, and the water main. So it's not the best situation to monitor performance because there's other things that can affect you, get some settlements with the underground. So there's no question. The glass certainly belongs in the granular base. The plastics and fiber would be in the asphalt.
Yep. The second question that came out of other questions is, when you put the sometimes just a rehabilitation top coat on a load rather than crack sealing it, can you use that material as well in the top coat asphalt?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd propose more just the fiber in the surface coat than the plastics. It certainly could be used as well, but for now it'd be primarily the fiber to give you that tensile crack resistance.
I asked that because virtually every road that's regional in my area is full of cracks. I don't think they've been done since 1973. But the top coat layers can give us a shelf life of another 5 to 10 years. And rather than waiting until we get around to tearing up the whole road, let's at least make it look good. So I raised that with Ramesh a number of times. So I just want to make sure that was a possibility too. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no question. We're looking at doubling the life cycle.
Sounds good. One further question from me, I think, before we move on. We talked about the cleanliness or the contamination in the glass itself on the base, and I think you said you were about 3% plastic particles is where we're at with this one. From a risk perspective, if that doubled to 6 or even higher, what is the risk to the road base if there's more plastic than we planned on?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. What we received from Next Cycle was around 2.5%. We've seen other jurisdictions in the U.S. where they actually specify non-glass content, and it ranges upwards. It could be even 5%. Now, in our own OPS, Ontario Provincial Standard, they do specify you can use recycled glass up to a maximum of 15% by weight, but they don't specify any amount of non-glass content. And this is something we discussed with the MUCP, the regulators. So they're kind of looking to us in the collaboration on this project for looking to us to set some guidelines and specify standards. So we would want to set the mark at 2.5%. Maybe we can improve on that. As I said before, the glass and some other particles, they're less dense than granular. So density is needed for strength. Now the amount we're using doesn't really have an impact on the density. So the more non-glass material, you're reducing the density. We don't want material in there that can hold moisture. So just for our, the longevity of the road base, we would like to see, a lower number. So we'd like to see it in around 2.5% or less.
Okay.
So we're not looking at anything more. If anything, it's a little less.
Okay. And again, because of the cleanliness of our current supply, although when we go to producer responsibility, that might change just with a lot of people are going large recycling bins now, where it's a mixed recyclability, right, in many municipalities. Okay. Sure. One additional follow-up, if you don't mind. It was touched on by Councillor Anderson, the contamination that was found. And, I love Earth Day. One of my favorite things to do is picking up trash. I think when I retire, I might do that full time. But just on the side of the road, when you start going on the side of any road and you start picking up things, obviously lots of cans and bottles, but you also find disposed cell phones and, we get phone calls as counselors often with needles and things like that on the side of the road. When you think of where that type of contamination could have come from, what do you think would be more likely? Would it be more likely through the waste stream in the glass, or do you think it would be more likely that it might have already been there before the construction began?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hard to say. It could have been there before. And once again, looking at our stream, these are things that we don't see in our recycling facility at all. Definitely not in the recycled glass. So again, it's not a concern of ours, and we're going to have control of that sorting process and the testing. And we'll be inviting MECP to come and look at our material as well before we use it. So we'll make sure it's clean and definitely safe.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't have anyone else on the speakers list. If you'll speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. Well, thank you very much for educating us tonight. I look forward to seeing the products themselves and kind of touching and feeling that. So, hey, thank you so much, Dan, for coming in.
Great.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
expertise. Okay, so now we do have the report in front of us. Can I get a mover and a seconder on that report? Moved by Councillor Yamada, seconded by Councillor Baron Pietri. Questions, comments? All in favor? Oh, okay, we just voted, but, okay, just a second. So we'll go to Councillor Yamada. Let's reverse the tape by 4 seconds. That vote didn't happen, I guess. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Through you to staff. Section 7.2 speaks to the province of Ontario and the standards for the amount of residual non-glass material for recycled glass used in the road-based material. Is the province starting to look at putting standards together? If this is going to be used through pilots and things of that nature, is there going to be a standard that we're going to start seeing, or is the province moving on such policies?
Yeah, we'll go back to Dan for that. It was touched on a little bit. Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you. That's a great question. Something that we struggled through with this process. And you're right, there aren't standards. Working with MECP, they're recommending to us that we set some standards and guidelines, and we're looking to use 2.5% as our guideline for now, and possibly improve on it.
And what kind of best practices does that come out of? Because you're talking about what's happening down in the States. Are we sort of using those best practices?
Yes, looking at other jurisdictions, it varies, we found, and we saw numbers at as high as 5% or more. And 2.5% was what Next Cycle processed their glass to. They're the only game in town, so we had no other place to go to. So we used theirs. It was adequate. We think we can do better, and so that'll be our goal. And once we able to show, we demonstrate that with our starting process. Those are the guidelines that we're going to set.
So my second question is, when we take a look at the discussion surrounding third-party environmental testing that you carry out with the recycled materials, and I'm assuming through the construction of these projects, do we sort of, because this is sort of a newer way of doing things, do we look at environmental testing just sort of near the beginning, or do we look at it sort of periodically now through the life cycle of the asset?
Yeah, through the chair, that's a great question. What we did is we tested the material directly. And that Regional Road 18, that right-of-way has been in existence for over a century. So there has been all kinds of material hauled in and delivered to build that platform, historical land uses, all kinds of different uses on local properties, surface water flow, groundwater flow, all kinds that could impact what environmental readings you could take in that area of the long term. So we felt the best way to test the material was pull out the material that we actually used and test it directly. So we don't propose any long-term monitoring. That'd be very difficult to provide any benefit.
And my final question is taking a look at the road segments that we're going to use in 2024. Can you sort of speak to how these candidates were selected? through to staff.
Sure, through the chair, that's a great question. The large inventory, as some of the other comments, we have many road segments that are in desperate need of work. So basically, that's our starting point. We have a large inventory. Every year, the network is analyzed, and each road segment is given a pavement condition index. So we track the performance of these roads, the condition. As that number drops, this segment was 4, is extremely low. Anything that drops, below 30, we're going to look closely at. So these, if I look back, I think the PCRs were varied between 18 and 20 something. So they're in desperate need of work. And then, so we look at how best to improve those roads, what rehab strategies, kind of the best value for money that we can use. So for using the glass with this methodology we're using, it's on road segments that require pulverization, so we can incorporate it in the rehab program. So that road segment, typically then for that strategy, would be exhibiting failure not only in the asphalt, but in the granular base as well through rutting and deformation. Could also have problems with road drainage, deteriorating culverts. So it's more an extensive approach. So those candidates, we looked for incorporating the glass, and those two road segments, they kind of fit the bill perfectly. For the other strategy, hot in-place asphalt recycling, those for road segments, again, in desperate need, but it was more the riding surface that had deteriorated. We don't see signs of significant rutting or failure in the base, and the drainage is relatively okay, so we could go quickly remove that surface layer. The process is basically the surface is just milled off, and that asphalt is reused. It's mixed with some new asphalt and rejuvenators and placed right back on the road in the same operation, so it's very quick. It's can be done quickly, and the traffic protection is fairly simple. And with the latest technology now, the cost for those costs have come down, and we've found it could be as 30 to 40% less than our conventional mill and overlay process. And again, we're reusing the existing material. So that was the criteria.
Because I'm looking here, in the 2024 roads, they're 2-lane rural road segments. We wouldn't be looking at a more urbanized or a road in a more urban setting, sort of to compare, or is that something we wouldn't need to do?
Yes, through the chair, we certainly could. The trouble with the rural settings, the urban settings, because you've got curb in place, a lot of entrances, businesses. When we pulverize these surfaces and we add material, we're increasing the elevation of the road. So in an urban area, that could cause all kinds of problems with the entrances. You'd have to replace the curbs. You're changing the elevation of the road. So it's more easily accommodated in a rural setting. You've got a limited number of entrances. You can adjust the drainage changes that occur there. But this is not to say that the hot-in-place recycling couldn't be done in an urban setting. It certainly could. It's just a little bit more work, the congestion of the infrastructure, and it still can be done. And we'll probably get there eventually, but this is kind of more the low-hanging fruit we're tackling at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next we've got Chair Henry. This is on this report? Okay. So let's make sure that vote is clean. All in favor of this report? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. We are now into other reports, and I think we should do these. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I'm prepared to move them all, and members of council, if they wish to speak, they can pull the reports.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder for A, B, and then D through J.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any pulls? Yes, actually, let's go. So we have a pull by Councillor Nicholson. Which number or letter? B and E? And D. Okay, thank you very much. Any other polls? Go ahead, Marilyn. F. Okay. All right. So let's vote on the remainder first. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. And then let's go first to B, and that is Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I've got a series of questions on this one. In the expropriation plan, you're talking about expropriating land on the north side of Wentworth Street to facilitate a multi-purpose bike trail right next to where there's an existing sidewalk. My question is, on the north side of Wentworth, that's where all the businesses are. You're taking their parking lots. You're going to put them out of business. We've got a gasoline truck filling station. We've got a number of garages. We've got Helenda's Meats, which has a small parking lot now, but it's very busy. If you are taking this land simply to put in a multi-lane bike path in the middle of an industrial park that nobody rides any bikes I've ever seen in my 60 years living down there, my first question is, why are you putting in a multi-lane when you have an existing sidewalk now? Are you taking out the sidewalk and to turning that sidewalk over to the south side of the road? I wonder if staff could explain the rationale for this.
Through the chair, the segment of Wentworth is on the regional cycling network, which typically has like either on-road cycling lanes or a multi-use path. So as of now, like, the design is advancing. The plan is to do a multi-use path on the north side consistent with the cycling network. And the properties are obviously like, partial takings, not like, you're not taking full properties. But on the south side, we do have flexibility as to whether we do a sidewalk or not. That would be a City of Oshawa call. I understand their advisory committee has requested a sidewalk on the south side. And that's a conversation happening with the city because, it happens with their approval.
Okay, the problem I have is we send out advisory notices to the businesses and to ask for their feedback. The multi-use trail and the sidewalks were not on the advisories we sent out. It's almost like a bait and switch scenario. These people said we wanted to fix the road, and then suddenly some group who are bicycle enthusiasts decide they're going to impose a multi-use trail and as a new sidewalk in an area that is industrial. Personally, I think sidewalks on the south side are unsafe because we've got big tandem trucks coming out of virtually every driveway on the south side of the road. And to be honest with you, I think I've seen more than 3 people in the last 60 years walking on the south side of Wentworth Street. If you cross the road, you go on the north side sidewalk. Now, if you're going to take the north side sidewalk and put it across the road, it seems like an awful waste of money for something that no one is going to use. And then when you tell me you're going to expropriate land to facilitate that from existing businesses who are working hard to make a living, and again, this is all in an industrial park. This is not in a residential neighborhood, because I don't mind bicycling in residential neighborhoods, but in an industrial park, no one's going to bicycle, no one's going to walk. We're spending an awful money expropriating land that we don't need, and we're going to hurt business on a process that simply no one has asked for, except the standard bicycle enthusiast says every time you do a road, you have to have a multi-use path, which may make some sense in residential neighborhoods. But in industrial parks, I'm sorry, I have a hard time accepting, especially on Wentworth Street, which is the major east-west core road through that neighborhood. There's already a multi-use path going up Fairball as part of its development being built next year. Why we need another one coming from the west that no one's going to use I just want to raise that point. The second point is there an opportunity, as we're looking at the design, to expropriate more land from the south side of Wentworth Street than from the north? Because the north side is where the businesses are. The south side is just empty, and there's lots of land you could expropriate. It wouldn't have any impact on anything. So I'm just wondering, is that something you would look at?
Yeah, certainly as that design advances, we will, but the challenge is, I believe on a project like this, we are not changing the center line. The minute you start to shift the center line, you usually get into other issues, but I'll certainly take that comment and, forward it to the design team.
I would rather spend the money on other projects than buying land for something that's not going to be used. I also have a hard time explaining to the business like Gilmore's Automotive, like Helenda's, and others that they're going to lose most of their operational space through a road widening, and you're going to put them out of business.
Through the chair, I would note this is a significant safety improvement project, like including the realignment between Simcoe and Ritson. I do share your, if not concern, your opinion about the sidewalk on the south side. But that's something, like I said, the city has asked for, or the committee, I suppose.
Well, first of all, the city hasn't asked for it.
Sorry, the active.
An active advisory group has asked for it.
Yeah, and therefore, like, we are trying to consult with Anthony and others in the city to understand what exactly do they want. Like I said, sidewalk is a local asset, so it gets done only in partnership with the city.
I can only give my opinion. If you were going to spend money on that, drop the multi-use path. Don't put the sidewalk on the south side. Fix the sidewalk on the north side, because it hasn't been repaired in, again, 20, 30 years. So if you're going to do any improvements to the sidewalk access, fixing the existing sidewalk on the north side of Wentworth might be a better option than expending on a multi-use pathway that might get one bike a week on only the summer months, because nobody uses the bike paths in the middle of January, February, and March. So I just want to caution that, there's no unlimited funds here, and let's spend money on the things we need, not things we don't need. Those are my comments, Mr. Chair, on Part B.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is the Vice Chair. Go ahead, Tina. Oh, let's try that again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning again. I'm finding that with respect to MUPs, just generally, just off the comments that Councillor Nicholson made, they're shared in my experience, and I'll tell you, when I started on council, and I'm still very, very much supportive of trails and MUPs. However, I think they've taken on a life of their own. And if you consider some of the signalization and some of the infrastructure that's required, I know that we're putting best practices forward, but at what point, as Councillor Nicholson has indicated, is that now, either way too ahead of the curve or overkill? And it's not to say that we don't need the paths, but some of the locations that are being suggested by the advisory committees, and we have to regard that very seriously, because any one of us could be advising what our preference is, and essentially putting forward maybe some ideas that look good on paper but may not translate. So I think what Councillor Nicholson was trying to say, and I'm not putting words in his mouth because this is what I understand to be the case as well, is we have to respect the advisory committees whenever they bring forward these ideas and suggestions. But we also have to weigh the benefit to the community and also the costs. So in the case of and I'll just give this example for the sake of it being before us, this particular stretch, we're looking at the potential of expropriating lands on the north side, and then the south side essentially facilitating with a sidewalk in exchange. Could we not look at integrating the MUP with the sidewalk? In other words, taking the sidewalk out of the north side and just having the MUP, because I find myself walking on the multi-use path on Thornton Road that leads from Roslyn all the way up to Taunton, because there's no sidewalk on that side. And whenever there is a bicycle, as you would in any other nation or community, you move aside. Now, hypothetically, you'd probably look at it and say, it'd be good to have both, but for cost and for practicality, could we not look at these stretches where there may be a conflict, instead of expropriating, and just have one piece of infrastructure that facilitates both needs?
Through the chair, yeah, as mentioned, the sidewalk on this segment is discretionary, and like with the multi-use path, like a sidewalk is always optional. And I think, like, other than the advisory committee's request through the city, and now we'll confirm with the city, and sounds like there's no interest on the sidewalk, which does make sense given the industrial activity on the south side, the trucks and so on. So, yeah, and that'll probably reduce our property requirements even more.
No problem.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I keep having the habit of turning the microphone off and trying to turn it back on, but it's controlled now, so I'm still getting used to it. I appreciate that, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Commissioner, I would just also caution any sort of, and we have this with a number of advisory committees. Everyone's well-intended, but the impacts then are on our budget and are on us in terms of delivery, whether it's staff or council in its approval. How do we deal with an advisory committee that it presents us an idea? It goes through the municipality and also the region, but does council through this committee get to consider that advice, or does it then get digested by staff who then come forward with the approvals as opposed to the consideration of what the approval should be?
Through you, Chair. Well, as noted, we got to know about what the committee wanted, and we just don't go and implement it. Like, that's the reason we go to city staff and we ask for their position, and hopefully whatever they want us to do, especially in case of a sidewalk, which is a local asset, it's really their call.
I appreciate that. I just want to just caution us, because I do trust that 99% of staff are in line with what the community needs collectively are, and also the budgetary restraints or requirements for council and the corporation. But I do think that there's a percentage potentially that could very well, bias the process and think that this is a great idea and have it go so far down the line where, staff and council are sort of committed. And that then becomes dangerous, because then you get into the argument, we're not listening to the advisory committee and we're not providing for the community because it's already been, sort of recommended by staff. So I just want us to be very cautious in how staff then process that information and how then it gets to us, because it potentially could impact us in terms of, the implications and the implementation of what's being considered. So I thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you to the Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, next we've got Chair Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Just to the Commissioner, there would be no problem referring this back to staff to have that conversation with the City of Oshawa?
Oh, yeah, that'll be an order.
Okay, in that case, I'll give you a motion to refer this back to staff to have the conversation with the City of Oshawa.
Councillor Nicholson, are you happy to second that? Oh, refer back to staff so that Oshawa and the region can speak? Okay.
To expropriate without that knowledge is premature.
Okay. So, I think it's hard to make policy in a meeting like this sometimes and come up with new ideas. So I think that's the best approach. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks, folks. Okay, we are now at D, I think, right? Okay, so we're D, and Councillor Nicholson, you pulled this as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple questions before I comment. Is this just a normal maintenance repair, or has this been something, I mean, a blowout or something that's requiring that this particular pipe be replaced?
Through you, Chairman, no, we're dealing with a 60-year-old water main infrastructure, and since MTO is going to do work on the bridges at Park and Cubert, it's just quite timely to upgrade it, and when you're doing it, like, it goes to the right location under the wider structure.
And I do understand that, and that on the face of it, that makes a lot of sense. My concern is the city has just passed an interim control bylaw for that entire section of Bloor Street, with the intent to remove all the low-level housing and replace with apartments to meet the provincial policy statement for intensification. So I just want to make sure that whatever pipe we put in is of a sufficient capacity and diameter that they can service 15-story apartment buildings that are all being built along there. Like, we have 9 applications now on the Bloor Street corridor. So whatever pipe we put in conjunction with the 401 expansion project, it can't just service the existing small homes. It has to cover that, right across the road from this location at the corner of Park and Bloor Street on the south side is an application for 100 townhouses and a 15-story apartment building. On the north side, all these properties are being bought out and put into conglomerations for things. And we're doing the rezoning as a city-initiated rezoning to take out the R2 zoning and replace it with apartment building zoning in order to meet the provincial guidelines, for new housing, et cetera. So that whole stretch of Bloor Street is not going to be car lots anymore. It's going to be apartment buildings.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure whatever you design is sufficient capacity. And that what my fear is if we do it now, are we going to tear it up again 2 years from now when somebody puts an apartment building? So I just wanted to raise those flags to make sure staff were aware of them.
Yeah. Through the chair, I'll just look for a nod from Mike Hubble that we're going to be right-sizing it. Mike, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Again, and thanks for pulling that. Are you okay now to move it?
Sure.
Okay. And seconded by, okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Okay, so all in favor of D? Oh, just a second. Walter Schumer, I missed your name. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you, I guess D as well as E, F, H are all essentially asking for additional funding, indicating that essentially these projects are over budget. I mean, D is 87% over, E 126, F 104. These are some pretty substantial increases in funding for these projects, and I'm just wondering if staff can elaborate a little bit more on where we've gone off the rails on these budgets.
Okay, I'll pass this to Ramesh. Oh, so the question is, all of these appear to be over budget. They're certainly over what the original budget was estimated at. Do you want to explain where the estimated budget came from? And correct me if I'm not explaining it right, Walter. Where we came up with the original budget and why we are where we're at.
Yeah. So.
Oh, your mic's not on though.
Through the chair. Well, I would say the response is different from each of these. Like on this one, like where we are talking about Park and Cubert, we certainly probably a year or two ago we hear about MTO wanting to come and do a bridge replacement at both the locations. It is at that time we don't know the length of the water main that needs replacement, any upsizing that may be required, and as we advance the design, I believe we are in our early stages of design now, close to 30%. That's when we sharpen our pens. Doesn't always go down. In this case, we are just closer to the project. It's in early stages, it's just a very high estimate, and that would be the response for this one. And the common theme to all of these is the escalation that we are seeing in everything in terms of unit prices of material and labor, and and it's almost like in the last year or so, we had the standard text in all our reports about supply chain shortages. So the escalations are multiple. The next one, I believe, Report F, in that case, which I believe was much more significant, about $2 million. In the early stages, we were only awarding that to the consultant for design. Later on, the scope of work was expanded to include construction administration during the actual project. So each one of these have different elements that contribute to escalation.
Okay, thank you. It's just, I don't know, I think we maybe should have seen a little bit more in the reports speaking to that. We've got a huge budget pressure on us that we're all aware of, and between all these reports, we're talking almost another $8 million. So it's a little disquieting, and no doubt this could probably be discussed more when it comes to council. But it's a little disquieting to see these overruns. Some of them over 100%, and just to kind of write it off to inflationary pressures is questionable. I know not all projects might be fully understood at the time we're doing them, but I just wanted to express the concern with these overages. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll just make a comment from the chair here as well. We are we're doubling the size of Durham Region from a population standpoint. Councillor Nicholson was just talking about the intense pressures we're going to have on what this infrastructure is going to have to feed from a water and wastewater standpoint. So, we need to do this right. We need to build it right. We need the right capacity, or we're going to be digging it up again in 2 years if we do it wrong. Chair Henry is about to comment.
It's the challenge that our staff are having is that every project is coming in over, and including one we're not talking about, but the $1.8 million increase on item H, which is the station in Beaverton too, is an overage that we didn't see, and it's not from our the fact that our staff aren't looking into this. It's when they go to purchase this, the cost of labor, the cost of materials, and sometimes even finding the materials needed for this. I think it's important that when we look at some of these projects, when we design and build some of our facilities, they're specifically built at tender time for specific pieces of equipment. And then when you have a piece of equipment that's in a plant that fails, that's been there for 20 years, the mounting brackets, the connections made for that, you just can't go buy another piece of equipment off the shelf to fit an existing connection. It's a real challenge. So I know that our staff are reviewing this and they're auditing what this is, but Mayor Schumer is absolutely right. The cost overruns are a challenge and are trying to be managed. And I'm worried now with Bill 23. So this isn't a question. So I'm sorry, but Bill 23 and the end results of the cost and impact on this region over the next 10 years is $800 million as well. So there are a lot of pressures, and the budget is going to be a very big challenge. And this is something that this committee, all committees, including finance, are going to have to manage. So thank you for the latitude, Chair.
No problem. And we have one more comment from our Vice Chair. Go ahead, Tia.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, and I think Chair Henry makes a good point when it comes to the project becoming a moving target and the potential of different elements, either existing or projected to be in question, and they're usually mechanical elements. Now, I think one of the things that come of that, and I'll ask it in the form of a question, is staff looking at the consultants we're using, because oftentimes the design that we're presented is what council approves. And when you're talking about experts, or as they call them, professional services, they better be on their mark, because then we may have to look at the cost overruns being as a result of these consultants making mistakes. And in large part, as Councillor Schumer indicated, these mistakes are to the tune of, sometimes double the amount of what is considered to be the cost. Now, inflationary measures is something that continues to be, expressed by the general public and those making decisions. But this happens, and it happened well before inflation was a conversation in this last half decade. I think we need to, and I'm going to ask through you, Mr. Chair, are we looking at the success rate of consultants and how they're measuring and providing designs and, the costs that are associated with the mistakes that those designs then bring forward?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I wouldn't characterize these overruns as any mistakes. We certainly, use our consultants to validate any numbers, because they do have a source into their other agencies as well. So we use their best practices connections to validate our numbers. So I want to assure committee and council, when we come to you with these reports, I acknowledge some of them are significant cost overruns. The consultant is challenged, and we also do our peer. We have good connections with other planning commissioners and works commissioners across Ontario. This is the tabletop conversation. Like every time I go in a common forum, they're all facing these escalations, and consultants provide us that conduit to that kind of information as well. So they do get challenged.
Okay, and just to close on that, through you, Mr. Chair, the unfortunate part, because any one of us would be either at a AIM or FCM conference, but if you go to Roma or Ogra, you'll hear a lot of this, especially, in the works department. Oftentimes, these same consultants are supervising the work that they've designed, for example. They're not going to tell them themselves. So the question here is, do we have a different form maybe that we're looking at to peer review their work? Because I find, in my experience in the time that I've been here reviewing some of the projects, and then speaking to some of the contractors, it seems like the cost overruns are associated in large part, not to inflation, but mistakes made on the designs that have to be corrected. And then there's arguments as to who's performing, the work and whether or not they're extras. So this is a relevant question, and I'll tell you why, because I think anyone on this committee has heard that, and I think you indicated it, Commissioner, that these questions, these concerns continue to occur and they continue to exist. So are we looking to these consultants to justify what they're doing versus others to look at what they're doing and peer review and make sure that if they are the culprit to the cost overruns, that they're held accountable? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, through the chair. We mitigate that in a couple of ways. One is like, keeping a close eye on what they're designing. But in most projects, that's the reason we don't award design and construction administration at the same time. Because if the design phase with the consultant doesn't go well, we want to eliminate the risk of having them own the construction administration as well. So that's the way we mitigate it. If they've done a good design, that experience has been good. And at times we use a peer review as well in complex projects, especially on anything to do with Duffin Creek plant. Like we get peer reviews. We have a scheduling consultant to manage the contractors. So we believe we have a lot of safeguards in place to mitigate that risk.
I appreciate that. And I sympathize through you, Mr. Chair, with staff, because a lot of these these companies, these consultants are consolidating to become large companies. So as Councillor Nicholson and I were discussing before, they may be the same companies in charge of a project in another municipality, another region. So it becomes difficult to seek their help when they're kind of in the same position somewhere else and giving the same advice. So I just wanted us to have that on our radar because inflation is an issue, but I do think that we need to start, looking at how the consultants come in and whether or not what they've provided us matches, the outcome at the end and whose fault was that. I know that this is a bigger and sort of like a more complex discussion, often becomes legal and financial, but I think in our experience, there is now a little bit more attention to be paid to the final product versus what was designed, because that's essentially, in my opinion, I'm not an expert, but in my opinion, why we have so much, extra cost on projects. And I hope that we can get to that eventually.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're back to Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, just a couple of follow-up questions and an additional comment. I really appreciate the point what the chair said about sometimes, our brackets wear out. But do we ever consider buying the brackets before they wear out, so we have them in storage at a cheaper price, as opposed to everything is always an emergency and we've got to get timeline delivery and that raises the cost of the bracket? It just seems like if your tires are wearing out and you get a good deal on your tires, well, you put them in your driveway or someplace, store them, because eventually you're going to replace that tire. If we know a bracket's still got a lifespan of 20 years and we're at 18 years, why are we waiting to the 20th year before we actually do the order? And maybe we can save some money because prices go up 15% a year sometimes in these brackets. And I use that as an example, but especially in construction. It's not just the 4% or 6% inflation rate, it's sometimes 15 or 20. We have the capacity financially to pre-purchase replacement parts that we know are going to wear out. Do we look at that?
So we just toured water and wastewater plants Thursday. A few members of this committee and a couple others. But what we saw while we were touring was staff that know their business, know their products, know which pump goes, have replacements ready when things are long lead time. I was extremely impressed with what I heard when we were touring those facilities. And if that was obviously a snapshot of 3 plants out of all the others that we have. But those staff knew what they were doing, knew why they were doing it, and were looking after the big picture. It was really important that we were there because we would hear things like, often we would get sole source reports at this committee on this certain pump that has a 300-day lead time, and why we might pre-purchase that. And the thing that we heard there was, well, if we don't use that exact pump, that means we have to change this concrete and this and this and this, and that $100,000 projects goes to $1 million in a second. So it's just, I encourage you whenever you get a chance, and we didn't give a ton of notice. A lot of that was my scheduling conflicts, but I encourage you to get out and see those some more. And I know you've been here way longer than me, but it was enlightening, certainly from my perspective, and we learned an awful lot about the quality of the staff that we have here.
No, and believe me, I totally concur. I think I've been to every plant that the region has at one point or another over the last 30-plus years. Was involved when they were being built, most of them. The concern I have, I guess, is, I call it what Councillor Marion Betry raised, the consultant that designs the project then also oversees the construction. I call it marking your own test. They're not going to tell us the problem with their design is if they find one, because they're not going to get hired again. We looked at divorcing this process. So those that design the work, that's the end of their involvement with the project. And those that are like the clerk of works that are actually constructing the project, their job is just to construct. Because I've seen numerous instances where, during construction, the contractors come back and say, that design's insane. But, the consultant says it's the best design in the world. Because he wants the next contract as well. And we keep going back to the same designer who keeps repeating the same mistake. Because they're not going to tell us until it fails that it's a mistake. So my concern is, what processes do we have that guarantees that we're getting top quality design and has the ability to do it? And the second question is a corollary to that, so I'll let staff answer both, is I'm always been reticent about approving contracts that guarantee only one company the work. Like, I like the idea of universal connectors, not one where I've got to bid, when it wears out, I got to go back to the same supplier because it's the only one that works. You raise the point, then if you go somewhere else, you got to redesign the whole thing. Do we not, when we put our design bids out, make it very clear that we expect that this would be a design that can be replaced by a number of companies, not locking us into the one company forever? Because when you're only buying from one, your price is, you got a gun to your head. You got no choice. And my concern is the more companies that bid or are able to bid, the better. So do we incorporate that in our design? Maybe we'll let staff answer those.
Yeah, I'm going to start just because that was part of the tour was one, and Rhonda's nodding her head because she remembers this part as well. We might have been in the area of the plant that we wanted to be in the least when we heard this story, because there's some odors that we didn't really enjoy. But I think we need to listen to our staff more and maybe consultants less, certainly in the example that we heard, where the designers put us into a spot that long-term will be an issue potentially, where the staff knew, and if we gave them more input in that design at that point, that we would have had a better product. It might have been a little bit more expensive initially, but it would have become lower cost over time because of maintenance. And I know we're correcting it because one of the items on this list are one that required 6 staff for 2 weeks to do work, and the new design is more expensive initially, but the cost of maintenance over the next 20, 30 years will be way, way less. Exactly. And it allows our existing staff to do more without getting distracted with a large construction project that's not very safe, really difficult. And so long-term, I think we'll go in the right direction for sure. I'm sure there's been, like any project, whether it's your house or your car or whatever, you're like, no, what, I shouldn't have bought those. I should have bought this instead. It would have given me better options long-term. I will go to the experts. I apologize for the non-expert guy speaking, but go ahead, Ramesh.
Through the chair, on the first one, Councillor Nicholson, like I said, I would say it's less than 10% of our projects where we have the design consultant also doing construction admin. And in that case, if we have come to you to sole source their construction admin to the same consultant, because we've reviewed them through the 30%, 60%, 90%, and we are quite confident with the design. The other point I want to make is during construction, we always have our inspectors as well, and our inspectors are top notch, whether it's Dan's road projects or facilities projects. They are there, if not every day, a couple of times a week. They are inspecting it. Every stage has a milestone approval before we would even advance any payments. So I would say there's a lot of checks and balances in the process.
Yeah. Well, and I do appreciate that, and I appreciate Chair Martin's comment, because that's, even when it's a layman, sometimes it's good common sense, you know? My concern is that sometimes with our consultants, and it's not just here, also with the locals here, we need to remind them who they're working for. They're working for the government. They're not working for the construction company. You know, so a lot of their designs are done, and we're finding, I call it conglomerate companies now, where the designers and the construction companies form one company. And I'm saying we need to make sure that that's in their interest to bid on both ends. But, you know, you can't mark your own test. Now, that's why we have our staff. Our staff mark the tests, not the consultant. And if there's only one design that results in one company and one piece of equipment, and, you know, they're just putting a gun to our heads and saying, pay me. One thing we've done at the city, and I don't know if we were doing it here too, is we're doing multi-year projects with the same consultant and saying, look, you're designing the next 4 projects. And you get the second one if the first one meets our standards. So it's not like they're losing one project they've got 90% paid for. They're going to lose the next 3 as well if they don't do it right. And the same with the construction work. If the guy knows he's going to get, and I use the parks as an example, if he's going to be building the next 6 parks, he's going to make sure that the first one's done right, because he's going to lose all the rest if he gets it wrong. Maybe that's the process we need to do in more of our, especially our sewer lines and roads, when we're designing this, is look, we'll hire you for 3 or 4 projects over a number of years, subject to you satisfying us on each step of the way. And if you do become substandard, you lose everything you got contracted for. I think that makes more sense to make them remember they're working for us, not for the other side. You know, we have enough trouble with the contractors themselves holding us to ransom. We don't need our designers doing it too. So I want to raise that point as something worth looking at.
And again, this has been really good discussion, I think, and I appreciate it. We do have an item on the floor. I see no one else on the speakers list. Are we good to have a vote here? Okay. And we already had a mover in a second. So all in favor? That's carried. All right. And now we are on, is it F? We're on F. And yeah, Marilyn, go ahead.
My only question on this one, obviously, it's like almost double the double of the cost now, but my question is around timing and impact to the school, if any. And hopefully it's done in the summer when there wouldn't be any impact, but.
If I could pass to Mr. Hubble, please.
I don't have a request here. Oh, you're in. Go.
Sure, thank you very much. Yeah, obviously the school, there's going to be an impact to the school, but with the type of construction that we're proposing, it'll be a very minimal impact. We're not doing an open cut construction. We're curing the product inside the pipe, so we need access at certain points, but we're not ripping up the whole stretch of sewer. So the impact, obviously the school will be notified of when the work is happening. There'll be designated areas that'll be fenced off for safety reasons. But it won't be a big impact to the school, but there will be notice provided to them.
Will there be notice to I'm assuming, the neighborhood too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you know approximate timing for that?
Well, we're waiting for this to be approved so we can award the contract to the contractor. Then they'll put together a schedule. It will start next year. It won't be this year.
Okay. Yeah, obvious. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
No problem. All right. I don't see any other people on the speakers list. Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. And then, do we have any other polls, or we're good? Okay. Councillor Nicholson, your hand is up. Under other business. Okay, so let's go to other business. Go ahead.
Just a question to staff. As you saw in the project on Wentworth Street, one of the key construction takeaways is a new set of traffic lanes at Wentworth Street and Nelson. For those who aren't familiar with that intersection, it's actually the road where the offshore works yard is located on, at that intersection. It's, from the south, it's the main intersection for all the industrial trucks that are coming out, because we don't allow them to come out to Simcoe Street anymore. But from the north side, it's a residential subdivision that are coming south. So we've got conflicts, not just north-south, but also east-west, this intersection. Hence, staff suggesting, as this project, putting a set of traffic lights here, which is a brilliant suggestion. My question is there a way, since this project's not going to be completed to 2026, that we could look at temporary traffic lights, servicing that area until we can get the permanent traffic lights in? Because it is traffic chaos right now.
Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, yes, we have looked into this, Councillor, this also came through you and Tracy Adams and Mike Saunier, because he's right there, sorry, the depot, right?
He's almost been hit 3 times, he said, so.
They're all quite interested. The challenge with the temp signal, though, and believe me, we took a serious look at it, there'll be significant throwaway cost, but that's just a financial consideration. I'm just saying just. But there's also a challenge with, you need the turning lanes there. For us to put a signal without turning lanes and those truck movements and so on, we are not convinced we are making it any safer. As part of the proper project, we are going to have proper turning lanes there so that you're not blocking through vehicles and there'll be enough turning radius. And that's the design challenges we have there.
Yep. I guess the concern I have is I've already got dangerous situations now. So the question you have to put to consider is that we can reduce the dangerous turns from both north and south by putting lights in. If you're saying that your concern is that the traffic might be slowed and backed up as somebody's making a left-hand turn lane, from a layman's point of view, that's a good thing, because they're bearing along there at 80 kilometers now. So anything that slows the trucks into that industrial park down a little bit maybe, in fact, improve the safety, because if you're trying to make a left-hand turn going towards Fairwell from the north, or trying to make a left-hand turn from Nelson to go eastward to Simcoe, you take your life in your hands trying to cross that intersection. And, we have 800 trucks a day. We have hundreds of work staff. We have snowplows. We have garbage trucks coming out that intersection. And we're mixing them in with a reasonably large residential subdivision that's coming out the south. And of course, anybody who's gone to the Land of Meat store knows that's right on the corner. So you got people turning the other way, trying to get in to buy their meat at the corner. On the other side, we've got a gas filling station for large tandem trucks, where they the large canister pipes and all that stuff. So it's an extremely busy intersection that no one would allow all these services today to be at the same location if we didn't have lights. So even if it's another $50,000 or $60,000 sunk cost, when you look at the scale of the entire project, from Fairwell Avenue all the way through to Cedar Street, and all the acquisitions, expropriations, et cetera, even those sunk costs, it's well worth it for the safety improvements to the neighborhood. And I really would urge staff to take a long, hard look. And of course, if it means more money, then bring a report back, and it'll be up to the council the day whether we want to spend it. But, I'd hate to be in a situation where someone is killed at that intersection, and especially by pedestrians trying to cross the Alendas, or families coming out from the neighborhood just trying to go somewhere with a tandem trucks coming through at 80, 90 kilometers an hour. We've got to slow the speed down on that street somewhat, and the traffic lights will be the long-term solution, but the sooner we get them up, the better. So I'll leave that in your good hands.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chair Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on Councillor Nicholson's question, is it not possible to put the traffic standards in now at the appropriate locations, using extended arms to bring the lights out into the intersection until the road work can be done? Or can we use the traffic light poles and run cables between the poles and suspend the lights off the wires? It's a technical question. I'm just curious if we look at those options.
Yeah, and that's exactly what a temp signal would be. But it still requires a lot of design, like, you need underground conduit for the power and so on. And the fact is, the permanent signal is 2026. Granted, it's probably 27 before it's commissioned, but, it's going to be a year, and then you're going to be throwing it away in a year or two. And like I said, we typically avoid signals without proper turning lane configurations because, as you can imagine, those long tractor trailers, when they try to turn into an axis, they do use an additional lane, and if you don't, and that's where you need a dedicated lane. That way, they're not going across multiple lanes, right? So we will look into it, but like I said, our preliminary look is there's a lot of challenges, but we are hearing you again today. We will look at it.
And just a follow-up question. I know that our CAO, Elaine Baxter-Traher, and I both found out yesterday about the power outage this weekend planned in Beaverton. I know that, Commissioner, you didn't find out about it till, I think, this week. Two questions. One, I'm hoping that you've already had that conversation with Alexicon to make sure that they realize that there's regional assets in every community. Second question is, we have 3 key pieces of infrastructure in Beaverton that will be affected by the power outage. Have we got the appropriate backup at our water treatment plant, our wastewater plant, and our long-term care facility? And the final question is, does this affect the traffic lights on Highway 12 at the intersection of the major intersection that goes into Beaverton, right by the Beaver River?
Yeah, through the chair. Short answer is we have it under control. Unfortunately, it does ruin a lot of long weekend plans for some. But I did have multiple conversations with Alexicon, at least with their corporate communications side, as to where things fell through the cracks. Typically, we need 3 weeks' notice in order to be able to roster the staff, especially in a long weekend. Like 4 would be even better. But in fairness, they did show us some pictures and so on. Did seem like an emergency. So I don't question why and what they're doing it, but I do question how did we not get informed. That's the part that's concerning. And there's facilities, they all have standby. They're going to work with us. We're going to have communications. We're going to have staff tuned in over the weekend. We do have it under control, but less than ideal situation. We have asked to meet with them the week after. Ironically, we did meet sometime in summer, exactly reminding them of we need to have better communications, at least 3 weeks notice. And I did find through, thanks to Councillor Crawford, they just took over a direction of lanes on Westney Road, and the councillor notified me and I said, I didn't know about it. And then we had staff go there, one side of the road is gone. So anyway, and they didn't have an occupancy permit, nothing. So we have a number of things for the agenda to talk about, and I'm hoping we can get some serious attention from the right people.
And what about Highway 12 and the main intersection going into Beaverton? Those traffic lights how are they going to back the power up, or do they have backup power? And it is an incredibly busy intersection.
Well, our traffic division is advised of that, and it's an MTO signal, and I'm pretty sure it has UPS, which might, manage it for 6 to 8 hours. But I take comfort that traffic was made aware, and again, they would have liked more notice too, but they will work around it.
And I know you're probably doing this, but can we track the time and costs for the region on this project?
Yeah, I've given instruction or request to all my staff to keep track of what's being spent and where and for what. Unfortunately, some of this will be overtime because it's a weekend, but we will get a tally of the numbers.
Okay. Thank you for what you've done in a very short period of time.
Thank you.
Okay, next we've got Councillor Yamada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, last month I asked staff to see if I could get a memorandum or a report back showing how the 4.8 million for the remuneration of the part of the first floor for 1635 is going to be allocated. I thought I'd be able to see that at this meeting. Is there any update on when that information is forthcoming?
Through the chair, I will apologize for that, Councillor. We are almost there.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for some final numbers. We
Okay.
are expecting to get it out in a CIP memo next week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and next we're with our vice chair. Go ahead, Tino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the commissioner. I think when considering signalized intersections, I know we have a few of them that have been studied and they're on the go. I'm not sure whether or not we can, receive a report separate or some sort of like an email that would tell us which ones are going to be activated in the next, 12 months or 24 months, because I think there's going to be some more questions regarding, signalized intersections. I have one in particular through you, Mr. Chair, to the commissioner. Because the city is undergoing a process of activating its second phase, its final phase on one of the community parks within the city of Oshawa and Thornton, just north of Roslyn. The community park is Rose Valley. Just wanted to know about that signalized intersection. We don't have to do it today. We just want to make sure that that's on our radar. For a timely installation of that, because I think the park will be complete by the end of next year. So we'd like to have the signalized intersection for the safety of the users and the residents in the area before the park is open. And then furthermore, there's a school, Sunset Heights. So Patton and Taunton, I think there's a signalized intersection for that too. I just wanted to make sure that whether we do it today or offline, that we can get an understanding of what the timeline is for the installation of those signalized intersections, because they are becoming more difficult to navigate.
Sure, I'll get you an update on that.
Thank you very much.
So what I'm wondering about just on that item, and you can take this as direction if you want, but why don't we, and we've seen it before with kind of snippets on when projects are happening, like a project page for signals, just so, Goodwood is one of mine, right? So, Goodwood, we expect it on this day, and if it can be something that we can have on our laptops and share if somebody asks, it's even better, right?
Schedule. Yeah.
So we can flip that back in an email with the expected dates. It's really important that we don't miss those dates though, right? So if I share information from the region that it's going to be done in 2024 and it happens in 2027, I lose that credibility, right? So we just need to make sure that we add enough safety time into those dates that we don't underpromise. We don't overpromise, right?
No, through the chair, I'm glad you acknowledge that that's one of the reasons we don't put the date there, because there's lots that happen in a signal, right? Starting from the power supply to the, additional turning lanes, and then a competitive process. And then you've got utilities, whether it's Alexicon or Rogers or Bell, Hydro, all these have to be coordinated. And that's the reason we at least don't make it public, but we are happy to share it with you. We do try to give you an update as part of the annual budget process as well. Usually we have a list of signals and we give you some indication. But we will probably try to get you a little more frequent updates once we have some certainty on times.
Yeah, and even if it's an internal site or an internal document, that we can get that information maybe searchable. That way we can watch that project as it moves. So we're giving the most current information all the time. Just a thought, and if you're okay taking that as direction, that'd be good. Okay. All right. So, we have two more speakers. Just when I think I'm done, I'm not.
Make your work for your money today.
It's all good.
Just a follow-up to actually Chair Henry indicated. When we do new signalized intersection construction, do we look at the potential of having them powered by solar panels so that we're not going to be subject to power outages on a regular basis?
Through the chair, the standard practice has been, at least to date, UPS, which gives you 4 to 6 hours, beyond which it goes automatically in flash mode.
Right.
So that's been the standard practice in the industry. In terms of solar panels, unfortunately, I don't have enough information on whether that's even
I just,
practical for
it seems to
power.
be the standard on a lot of the provincial highways now that all their signage.
Oh, for signals?
Is, not signals, but their signage is all
Oh, that we do.
solar. What I'm saying is, would it not make sense, rather than being at the whims of Lexicon or Ontario Hydro, or whoever, or it's just a power outage in the area because the transformer went, if our signalized intersections were powered by solar, I'm not suggesting overnight, all of them, but in time as we replace them, would we not be looking at that as a cost savings because it's like free power, for one way of putting it, as opposed to having to keep paying the hydro year after year after year, decade after decade? Would it not make more cost effectiveness over time to translate those to self-powered units?
Yeah, certainly I will look into it, like, certainly reaching out to our peers as well. I know we don't have any now, but as to why not, like, I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I'm not saying go out and replace 800 lights tomorrow, but
As a pilot,
as
yeah.
we're putting new ones in, maybe
Sure.
this is where we got to look at ways to save some money long-term. The second point is, following up on the questions Councillor Manpatry raised, at the city, we ask for quarterly updates on capital projects. So we know where they're standing in the mix and are they progressing well? And most times the project's under construction, it's going well, it's on budget. And it gives you a sense of comfort as a councillor that things are expected to be completed when they're completed. At the region, we only find out about when something breaks or something doesn't meet the deadline, then the phones light up and we go, well, what's going on? So I'm wondering, is it something we could provide here at the Works Committee on our works projects? Either a quarterly or a half-yearly cycle to give us a status report on all ongoing construction projects, just so we have a comfort level that things are progressing well as we move on through the year?
Through the chair. If I may, if I had my preference, I would say annual. I'm looking
We
at
have a
Dan
budget
Wa-
for that, though.
Sorry?
We have a budget called that. That's what budget is for annual. I'm talking between budgets.
No, but we don't give you an update on all the project status, right? I'm looking at Dan, like, he's got about 130 projects in a huge spreadsheet, that every month we review with the managers and directors. Yeah, we probably could streamline it to, the basic elements of what would be of interest to council, start date, completion date. We will consult internally on, like, what might be the best way to share that in a meaningful way. And I'm assuming it's just for internal council information,
Yeah,
as opposed to
absolutely.
posting it for public, and then we constantly get about, like, November 23rd was the completion date, like, it's November 24th.
Well, the reason we do it now at the city,
Yeah.
because we were like the region for years, was that we always found out if there was an issue when the projected completion date was not met. Because then what councilors would call and say, wait a minute, you said this was going to be built by October 2023, it's now November, and it doesn't even look like it's half completed. And then we're running around trying to apologize to our residents, having told them it's going to be done by this date. So we're getting it in the neck, and we don't have any information to explain, like, why was it delayed? Sometimes it's just something you found, or there's a supply chain problem. There are easy answers. But we can't be in the dark as elected officials. We have to have the ability to have some information that we can inquire, and if something flags on the line, we can call staff directly and get more detail. But right now, it's like, surprise, it's not being built this year. It's hard for us to explain, having told our residents it's being built this year.
Through the chair, I will consult and probably reach out to the Oshawa colleagues just to find out, how do they manage that process, because I don't know about the volume of projects that they report on. Like I said, we probably have, like, just in Dan's group, about 120 projects, and we have, like, 30, 40 facilities projects, water, sewer. We do have a lot of projects, so we somehow need to be able to filter it to probably active projects or near-term projects, and so we will look into it.
The one benefit from a council's perspective and from a committee's perspective is you get to see if something's got a major problem. We found we had projects that were approved in 2019 that the design hadn't even started. So we had a budget projection based on 2019 prices, and then we had overruns because obviously if you wait for 3 years to start the project, the price goes through the roof and the staff have to come back and ask for more money. We might have been able to provide you that money in 2020 rather than into 2023. So from a financial point of view, this ongoing progress report gives us opportunities where we see a systemic problem of assisting staff by providing additional funds, rather than just waiting till the end, when the price has gone up by 100%. So I just think it's part of the communication, as I call the team approach between staff and the council, so we can work together to resolve issues as opposed to being unfortunately in confrontation when something doesn't work. So I just want to leave that with you.
Okay, next we've got Tito.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just on your note about timeliness, I think one of the things that through you to the commissioner we have to consider, whether it's through AMO or OGRA or any other entity, speaking to the province about how we can align our utility locates. In my experience over the last little while, some of our projects have been delayed, be it at the region or the city, as a result of not being able to share the same locates. I think coordinating and aligning them in some way, being able to, having, as Councillor Nicholson and I discussed as well, I think generally we've, as a council, tried to figure out whether we can have our own, locates performed. But we're having problems where the city can't rely on the region's locates because they stand alone, from what I understand. And at times, we're not optimizing, the locates that are provided. Now, I don't know what the reasons are, whether it's legislated or whether it's just, good practice or past practices, but I think that impacts the timeliness and delivery of the projects, especially when it comes to roads and in signalized intersections. So I'll leave that with you, Chair, and the Commissioner.
Sure.
Through the chair, thank you for that. Just as a comment, I've never heard of a project being delayed due to locates information not coming from the region, which is water, sewer, traffic. But I can say the same in terms of all the utility companies, and yeah, they are almost always on the critical path in terms of us being able to get to a project, whether it's starting or completing. But I take your point.
Yeah, and what I hear on some of mine are relocating utilities, not the locates themselves, but it's, we have to move this before this happens. And that delayed one of my projects by a couple of years.
Correct. If that's what you meant, sorry, I got it wrong. That's always delays in terms of not just getting locates, but getting the utilities relocated so that they're out of our way, whether it's underground, overhead, and so on. But we have regular meetings with all the utility companies. I don't know if it's quarterly or twice a year, where we talk to them about all the projects we have. They try to line up our resources, but they are stretched thin too. Hexicon is a good example, right? So.
Yeah, and no problem. And I think what we've learned in this works meeting is that when we're doubling the size of our cities, there's going to be a ton of work, lots of communication, and we need to work with our partners, whether they're consultants, other levels of government, or contractors. So we just need to keep on chatting and not finger pointing, but instead, make sure that we're real partners in this immense project that we've got. So I don't have any other speakers on the speaker list. Every time I do that, one pops up. But Chair Henry? Okay, so moved by Chair Henry, seconded by Rhonda. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, folks.